Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the podcast where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today, we're kicking off season 3, not with a bang, but with a pop. And I say that because my guest is also known as the Pop Foxx, aka Marisol. She's from Florida, and she is, I want to say a Funko collector, but I'm actually going to say maybe a vinyl figure collector might be more apt. And she's from Florida. She's Marisol, and welcome to the podcast. How are you going?
It's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Would I be correct in saying that you're not? I mean, you're known for Funko, and you've got Pop in your username on Instagram, but you've really been sort of like getting out of that now and sort of branching into other figurines.
Yeah, for sure. So I've definitely started as just a pop collector, but I would definitely say I'm just a vinyl collector now, a vinyl figurine collector.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's sort of talk about that. I mean, firstly, people wouldn't know, but you and I have become friends on through Instagram, where once upon a time I slid into your DMs, as they say. Not for nefarious reasons, but because you actually posted a story once upon a time saying something along the lines of, I'm trying to quote it exactly, but it's something along the lines of, why can I never find a good collecting podcast? They all disappear, or they take 6 months between episodes, something along those lines. And I messaged you, and I'm like, hey, just so you know, I've got a collecting podcast, which I hope to make pretty regular thing. Maybe check it out. And that's how you and I actually got to meet, probably well over close to a year ago now, but I think I've been following you for about a year and a half because I was already following you at that time. That's why I saw your story. Does that sound, do you recollect that correctly?
Yeah.
As well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I was like, I was very upset that I could not find any podcasts, and a few that I was listening to, it was that they weren't consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would take several weeks off, or, not announce that they were going on a break, or they would just disappear. Like they wouldn't last. So yeah, I was so happy when you messaged me. I was like, all right, I'll give it a listen. And here I am listening all these seasons later.
Yeah. And because we're now starting season 3, which is crazy for me to think about that. And just so people know, it is your favorite collecting podcast. You don't have to answer that. I'm just going to say it is, and we're going to run with that. We're just going to run with that.
No, it is. It's absolutely my favorite. Favorite podcast.
Well, thank you for entertaining me there. Thank you. So let's go into the collecting, though. So that's obviously so people know the background of you and I knowing each other and having a pretty good relationship, talking to each other, because we've been communicating for quite a while. But let's talk about the collecting. So I, as I mentioned, was following you before that. That's why I saw your story, because you were more of a Funko pop vinyl collector for the longest time, concentrating on mostly, I think, Disney and Hanna-Barbera, I would think would be probably the ones that I saw most frequently. So
yeah.
How did you start with your collection?
Basically, I started collecting in 2016, and I was in a weird place in my life. I was like going through a real transition. So I had just gotten married. We had just moved to Atlanta, and I'm originally from New York. I didn't know anybody in Atlanta. I had just stopped working after we got married, and I was just kind of like trying to find something to occupy my time, honestly, and something to do, something to keep me busy. And so I know this is not popular opinion, but I was a reseller for a while of different things.
Okay.
And I came across Funkos because they kept popping up as like things people were asking for, and I saw like the value on some of them was a lot for just a small vinyl figure. So I got very curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started seeing them everywhere. I think the first thing I ever picked up was a General Grievous Walgreens exclusive.
Oh.
And I was picking them up for people because where I lived, and it's funny, you had another person on the podcast, I think, a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
She lives in Atlanta, or she did live in Atlanta.
Yeah, she
and
did.
It's so funny. She was talking about how many Targets were in her area.
That's right.
Right. So Target Walmart, Walgreens, literally like feels like it's on every corner for some reason in Georgia. So I was like, sure, this Walgreens doesn't have it. I'll just go 2 blocks up the road and that Walgreens will have 7 of them. Like it was wild. So I was doing that for a while and then I just ended up getting into them myself and I never looked back.
So you're not like a huge Star Wars fan, I would say. But did you still
No.
have the General Grievous, or you just picked that up for someone
So
else?
I picked it up for somebody. I picked it up
Okay.
for somebody and I kind of regret not holding on to one now.
Yeah, yeah. I think the value of them is not too bad these days. And as I mentioned, your collection has veered into the Disney and Hanna Barbera. Why those lines? What is it that connects you to those? And what is it you love about them?
Nostalgia. It's just the nostalgia and the
Hmm.
childhood memories I have with those cartoons and those movies.
Hmm.
You know, when I first started collecting, I was like, you know, crazy for every line that they were coming out with, and I just ended up with so many pops. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I have to choose lines and just stick with them. And those are the ones that really tied back to like my childhood memories, and I just love them. And I think and Funko does a great job too with those particular lines with the retro animation and with all the Disney figures. I just can't. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I need to have them.
Is there a specific? Because I think I know what the answer is to this is going to be, but there a specific Hanna Barbera cartoon that sticks out to you?
Top Cat.
Top Cat. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is
I,
weird.
I was going to go with Scooby Doo because I see so much Scooby Doo in your collection.
Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of I watched a lot of Hanna Barbera growing up. So like Scooby Doo, the Jetsons, the Flintstones,
Yeah.
and Top Cat. But Top Cat, for whatever reason, was like the first one I would watch.
Yeah.
I had watched when I was a kid, and I would watch it over and over and over, and like it was like even when we were younger, right? Like it was already old, that cartoon. So people were like, "What are you doing watching this cartoon?" I think it was like on Cartoon Network at the time, and they were like, "This is such an old." I was like, "Oh, it's so funny, that Top Cat, Officer Dribble, blah blah."
Officer Drool. That's right. Yeah.
I just loved it. I would like watched it. I could watch. I would like it. I would just leave it on after school every day. I just thought it was great.
I love that. I do remember watching Top Cat as a child as well.
Yeah, I loved it. And actually I have none of the pops, oddly enough. It's like on my list of lines I need to bring in here.
And that's the other thing, like I was saying, like Scooby Doo is the one that I thought you, because I've seen you with so many Scooby Doo figurines, especially you got a lot of the handmade by robot figurines as well. Let's talk about that because obviously you've got the Funko background, but I mentioned that you are a sort of a vinyl figurine collector. You've become a big advocate for handmade by robots. Tell us about how you got into them as well.
So Handmade by Robots, I saw a friend post on Twitter one of his hauls, and there was a Handmade by Robots figure in it. And I had never seen it before. And I was looking to kind of start getting outside of Funko and looking for something different. And he had posted 2 of their figures and I messaged him right away. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what are these figures? These are really cool. I love how they're supposed to look like they're knit, but they're
Hmm.
all vinyl." And he's like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, you know, they have they have Disney ones that I think you would love. I've been meaning to tell you about it." So I went to
Okay.
the website, I went down the rabbit hole, and that was it. I placed my first order and I've been ordering ever since.
Yeah, well, you have because you've got a lot of them. You've got, like I mentioned, you've got the Scooby Doo ones. I know you've got Nightmare Before Christmas, talking about some of the Disney style ones,
Yeah.
and you've got Ghostface because you're also a bit of a horror fan as well.
Yes.
I mean, your collection is a bit of a mixed bag, but
Oh yeah.
you really started to expand. Like I see so many posts from you about, is it HBR? Is that the short acronym for them?
It's
Um,
HMBR.
HMBR. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say Handmaids by Robot, but,
Yeah.
because well, I'm mumbling over my words now, but yeah, that's uh, everyone knows what I'm talking about here. So I see a lot of them in your posts now, like quite often, and obviously your shelves are starting to migrate away from Funko to become those other things.
Yes.
What would be the favorite handmade by robot figure that you have so far?
My favorite, my absolute favorite is the bloody ghost face that I have
Oh yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
them. Yeah, because it's a super limited edition. It was like 780 units, I want to say.
Hmm.
Um, and it just looks so great. Like they did such a great job. It was in conjunction with HelloSydney.com. So it was in conjunction with Scream.
Yeah.
And I just love that the window has like a blood splatter all over it.
Uh-huh.
And like half his face is all blood splattered and there's blood all over the knife. It just looks so good. And that's like, it's hands down my favorite figure from them.
Which is funny
Um,
that it's got all the blood and everything when it's supposed to look like a knitted doll as well. So it's like this
yeah.
real is dichotomy the right word? But having that, you know, something that looks so sweet, but is also covered in blood
Honestly,
of a murderer.
yeah, and that's what draw me to it, I think, because I was like, the first ones that I saw were the Ghostface ones, and I was like, this is so strange. Like, who could make Ghostface cute? You
Yeah,
know, like I was like, I wouldn't mind having these Ghostface because I'm like a little bit of a horror fan, and I always loved the Scream movies, but I never really collected anything from it before Handmade by Robots.
yeah,
So I was just, they just do that figure so well, and like I think it was just so fun. Like, it's not too terrifying to have on your shelf either.
yeah. I
So
would.
yeah, I got hooked on it.
Well, I mean, I would say you've taken a few people down that rabbit hole now because I myself actually sent you a post not just recently in chat showing you that I had pre-ordered my own figure from them, the Batmobile, the
Yes.
'66 Batmobile. As soon as I saw that, I thought, all right, I have to have that for the collection. Like, and it's also a limited edition. Majority of their figures are limited edition, right? In quantity.
So yeah, so that's like the new direction that they're going in is
Right.
that they have limited runs on their figures, which I love because I think there's a lot of collectors that are working over there and making these decisions, and
Yeah.
you know they know they collect themselves, so they know what we're looking for, and I love that. Like probably the last 4 or 5 things I've purchased from them actually have been very limited runs and are now sold out and gone.
And as opposed to Funko, who we were talking about, who do things in, I mean, 10,000 would be a small run for them now, right? Like the majority of figure runs they're
Exactly.
doing are probably 20 to 50,000. I got to think they've probably got things that have hit the 100,000 range in some of their Disney or Marvel figures. Who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. There has to be, you know, such huge runs. I can't even imagine what their largest run is over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going from that for so many years to having something that's so limited was a really nice, it's like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of what I've been gravitating more towards lines or brands that are doing super limited runs. Cause I don't know, I just want to tighten up my collection. I want it to feel more special.
Yeah. And let's talk about that when you talk about tightening up your collection. What kind of thought goes into the things that you add to your collection now and the things that you may eventually resell or dispose of, giveaways, whatever, from your collection? How do you, without just making your collection bigger and bigger and bigger every time you buy a new haul, how do
Yeah.
you keep it to a certain size and how do you refresh that?
So I ask myself a couple of questions. So I ask myself, number one, most importantly, do I really love this figure or do I really love this line? Or is this just a phase?
Hmm.
Right? Because sometimes we kind of like maybe a movie comes out we really like or a show and we want to
Yeah.
get, you know, they announce the pops, we want all the pops, but you know, is this show going to be canceled after a season? I'm going to forget all about it.
Yeah.
Um, so stuff like that, I tend to stay away from. And if I have anything like that, I usually sell it. Or, and also, is this a line that I am going to continue growing and continue collecting? And I like it enough to do that. For example, I'm a huge Toy Story collector, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I know it doesn't matter what they come out with. I'm going to get it if it's Toy Story. So I feel very safe keeping that line here and keeping that line going. The same thing with The Office. I'm complete on The Office. I
Yeah.
love my Office collection. Whatever they come out with from The Office, I'm going to get. So I'm good with that. But for example, right now I'm in the process of selling my ad icons because I haven't kept up with it. I'm just really not into it. I've been selling it off little by little. It's not worth the real estate for me.
Yeah.
So that I have set aside right now. Actually, I have to get the boxes and post them for sale. So if it's not something that's going to have longevity in my collection, it's a no for me.
Yeah, I've spoken about it plenty of times on the podcast about how space is the enemy of collectors.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I recently just I was posting about how I just got like 6 new shelves that I've added to my bookcases, and I was like, and like, this is the end of the line, guys. Like, I can't go beyond this whole wall and corners, and these bookcases are getting to a point where they can't hold any more shelves. So, some hard decisions might need to be made here soon.
Well, a little bit outside of the podcast, but just going into my real life earlier today, because it was around lunchtime that I'm recording my time, nighttime for you, obviously the Australia versus Florida difference. But earlier this morning, my partner and I, we were actually out apartment hunting, and one of the things that we have to factor in when for anywhere we purchase is there enough space for the bat cave, because I have to have my collection room.
Right.
And the place that is top of the list at the moment that we actually just looked at this morning has massive bedrooms, and one with a nice big long wall that I'm thinking all my Billy bookcases could go along. And I was thinking, looking at it, thinking I could probably fit an extra bookcase on the end of that, actually, looking at the length of it. And so I'm thinking I might be able to actually expand the display section. But again, there's only, like, even though I might get a larger room, at some point I'm going to hit the limit on that, right? Like at the moment, because this, what you see in the background from me, is kind of chockers, right? Like this chocker block, and then what you don't see off camera is that I've got other chocker block Billy bookcases and other shelves and boxes and everything everywhere as well. So that space is something that becomes really hard to fill, and I can just imagine with those 6 shelves that you got, how hard it is to then. Okay, so if you're putting that shelf in to make space, what are you taking off? Where are you losing that space?
Well, I'm just making it like tighter, or I'm putting I'm putting way more things on another shelf that wasn't so full before to
Yeah,
have a fresh shelf, probably to add new things that I've gotten, or maybe I've committed to like getting the whole line of that. So I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to plan ahead as well with certain things. For example, though, like these shelves, the main purpose was for my Handmade by Robots collection because I wanted to finally give it its own case because now I have enough to give it its
yeah.
own case. And I was mixing them in with the pops before, and I wasn't. I love how that looked. So yeah, so that's what it is. Like I'm sure you could see it behind me a little bit, but so there's like those shelves look a little sparse, but I know that once I have some pre-orders and stuff that come in, those shelves are going to get filled up. So yeah, that's what's happening right now. So I have like super pack shelves and then some light shelves.
And speaking of other different toy lines, is that a Ghastly I can see at the top of that shelf as well?
You know it.
Is that the black light one that you recently picked up?
Yes. So I have
No.
the skeleton ghastly and I have the black light, which, oh my gosh, they did such a great job on him. He looks so awesome.
And for people who don't realize, there's actually a YouTube channel called Gasselcast, which is a couple, Chris and Heather, who've started their own toy line called Mischief Toys. And Mischief Toys has one figure, or their mascot, which is Ghastly, and he's like this sort of ghoul with horns and a like a crooked smile, which they've been making different figures of, and really cool because they're also limited edition as well. So there's, all these different limited edition figures in your collection makes your collection become its own sort of one of a kind collection over time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one, I want to say it was 385 they made, and that
Yeah.
was it. And I got to tell you, when that drop happened, it was the first time in many years that I had like those butterflies in my stomach where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. I was so happy that I was able to snag him. But I love that. I love having something that is limited and you can't easily get. And I love that it's the excitement of the drop. I haven't
Yeah.
had that with pops in a very long time, unfortunately.
Have you had something that you've missed out on in a recent drop that you were like, damn it, I really wanted that and I wasn't able to get it?
I missed out on the Buzz Lightyear Loungefly combo that they just came out with. I think it was like
Yeah.
last week because he's limited to 3,000, which is like really why I wanted it. And I missed out. Had him in my car, and like I don't know, Shopify like glitched out on me or something, and it said that it couldn't like verify my info, and then like kicked me out of the screen. And I was like, okay, and it was
Um,
gone. So I'm a little
right.
bummed about that, but he'll eventually make his way here.
Well, as a Toy Story collector, I can see why you'd be bummed about that. Now, would you have rushed out to buy that if they didn't have a number on it, though? This is what I think of as collectors as well. Are we sometimes drawn in by the number?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would not have been in such a rush to get him
Yeah,
had he not had that sticker that said 3000 on it. Absolutely not. Because really it's a Buzz mold that we have already seen just with glitter paint, really. Bag is cool, but it's really that sticker for me
yeah,
that I wanted
yeah.
him so badly.
Actually, going back to Gasselcats, that's one of the things they talk about, people being sticker hose, and I guess as collectors we are a bit of that as well. I'm guilty of it. I've got some of the things that I get, even though I can get them here in Australia, they have the special edition sticker rather than say like the Target sticker or something
Right.
along those lines. I bought Entertainment Earth exclusives from Entertainment Earth and got them shipped via a forwarder in Florida because I wanted to have that sticker. I didn't want to have the special edition sticker. I wanted the original release version.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like we say on me and Nando on our podcast, we're always like the sticker makes it sicker. And that's what makes us want it. So I totally understand that. And the funny thing about that is that you want the Entertainment Earth sticker, and so you'll use a reshipper, and me, I'll order from somewhere overseas because I want the special edition sticker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love the special edition sticker, the current one, and there's a newer one coming out that looks really good, actually.
The blue one? Yeah, I like the
Yeah,
new blue one. I actually hated the other one, the silver with the red. I hated that one. I thought that was an ugly sticker. So I was, if any chance I could
really?
get not to have that sticker, I would go for the other version. But the blue one, I don't mind. I've actually become more partial to that, and I'm probably less likely to worry about sticker because of the fact that I like that sticker and it looks more Funko related than just special edition for overseas.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. And it also depends on the retailer too, the retailer sticker, like, because,
Mm.
they change pretty often. Some of them are like super generic, like GameStop here. Their
Yep.
sticker is very generic. So, like, if it's something and get a specialty series sticker on, I'd rather get that than the GameStop one, honestly.
I've also got one of the other ones that I got last year was the Pop in a Box one for the Batman movie, but it looks like they've just recently gotten rid of Funko altogether now from their lines. They're not going to be stocking them anymore.
Yeah. So that was the rumor for a long time there. And they have confirmed it today. I
Mm.
guess people were asking and they would message back saying they no longer carry Funko. And I had sent a screenshot to my friend the other, like 2 days ago, because I actually searched it on their site and there was nothing left.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was
it's
like,
crazy.
oh, I guess it's happening. They do not have it anymore.
And that
It's
actually
wild.
takes me to the next thing I want to talk about. I want to address something because it's the end of January when you and I are recording. And this is probably going to come out of left field for you because I haven't discussed this with you.
Okay.
Your face right now is like, okay, where are we going with this? I'm actually very much considering, and I probably will be doing through February. I'm going to be using the hashtag Funko Free Feb
Okay.
because I want to post through all of February, except for if this episode comes out in February, obviously. I want to post anything that's not Funko that is in my collection. So I want to basically post. I've been buying Hot Toys Cos Riders. I've got Icon collectible statue. I do have other things that I'm looking at purchasing at the moment, Hot Wheels, all sorts of things for my collection. But there's so much outside of Funko. Funko has now dominated so much of the collector's world. And with the recent things that have come out, again, through actually referring back to Gasselcuss, they've done a few videos on this. And a lot of information is coming out about the way that Funko has treated their employees and specifically like people within their art departments as well.
Hmm.
Letting people go at the start of the pandemic without any severance as well. It sounded awful. I would have hated to be a part of that. And it seems like as a company, like I understand they're a billion-dollar company. And for anyone that says, look, that's business, I get it. I've worked for many large companies. I've been part of redundancies. I was part of a redundancy just last year myself. I get that happens in business, but it seems as though the way they treat their employees isn't great. And the way that they maybe treated them on like through those redundancies isn't great as well. And so for me, I want to try and show my support during February for those people by using that hashtag FunkoFreeFeb, and all posts on my collection are only going to be for items in my collection that are not Funko, and I'm not going to be probably buying anything Funko during that month as well. What do you think of that? How do you like, as someone who's pretty I get every Funko drop myself, so this is going to be tough for me, but how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about what you're hearing out of Funko?
About the information or about what you're telling me that you
Well,
want to do?
both.
So, first of all, I commend your self control because,
Not saying it's going to be easy.
the not buying anything, I would love to say that too, but that would be very difficult just because, I'm trying to stay complete on things and you don't know what's going to come out. But I do love that idea. I really, really like that. I've been trying to post way more non-Funko things myself.
Yeah.
But I like that you want to do that to show support for, the people who have been let go or maybe aren't being treated, pretty fairly as employees there.
That's right.
And that news that did upset me that they don't have great working conditions. I didn't like, you don't love to hear that a company that you give a lot of your money to and that you're a fan of is treating their employees like crap. Like, that doesn't make you feel good and doesn't make you want to support that company the way that you normally do.
That's right.
And like you were saying about the redundancies, I've talked a lot about how, like you said, this happens in business. Like it's one of these things that sometimes needs to happen for a business to take a new path to success or growth.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not cool with them not treating the employees fairly, and I have heard that in the past.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole, I again, allegedly, I know that Gas and Cast has their sources.
Mm-hmm.
But I have heard that through the grapevine before, like, through a friend of a friend who has a friend there, that people have not been happy there for a long time, like way before this even happened. Just that it's like, basically I got the idea that it's not a place you'd really want to run to work for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I love their product. I have like I think I'm close to 300 Funko Pops now in my collection, or Funko items in my collection. I've put a lot of money into that company. But also you start to think that sometimes some of the lines that they're releasing, they're not putting a lot of thought into as well. Like, let's slap some glitter on Buzz for on a mold that we already had, chuck it in with a Loungefly bag, and we can get people to pay. And I've got Batman pop vinyls here. I've probably got 50 of the same mold, just in different paint variations and everything like that. I know there's only so many molds you can make, like cost wise, but they're looking to go to a $2 billion valuation. That's what they did when they did their earnings call, and they were talking about what they wanted for a future of a company. They're looking for a $2 billion valuation at the end of this financial year. So the only way they get there is to push the same lines over again, or to cut costs here or there. And I just don't think it should be at the expense of those people. So that's where I'm at with that. I don't want to, I guess, probably spent half of the podcast talking about it, but I just wanted to highlight that, especially because when this episode comes out, more than likely that's what's going to be happening on my pages. I'm going to be having those posts and hopefully getting people to join me in supporting that and showing their support to Funko employees as well.
Well, I will definitely join you. I love that idea. I definitely would love to show my support for that. And I'll help spread the word. I hope a lot of people join the cause. I think that's a great idea, JD. Like, honestly.
Thank you. Well, look. The other thing I wanted to talk about, just to wrap up, because we could talk forever on these podcasts. I do try and keep them to a certain time. Is when I invited you to be on the podcast, it would have, when I thought you were going to be coming on the podcast, I thought it was going to be your first time on a podcast. But since then, because it took a little while to get you on here, you've actually joined the podcast yourself. So you actually now are a voice out in the collecting community with the Funkaholics podcast. Tell me a little bit about how you got talking with them there and how you became a part of that yourself.
So yeah, I mean, well, first of all, let's be clear here, right? So I've been asking to be on JD's podcast and this podcast forever, and JD was like, "Well, you don't really have a lot of followers, and like you don't have a massive collection like other people I
Slander,
have on here.
lies.
So I don't know when we'll get you on. Maybe when you're a little bigger." And I was like, "Okay." In the interim,
I think you've got more followers than I do, actually, if we look at our pages now.
somebody else came along and was like, "Hey, I'd love to have you as you are on my podcast now." I'm, I no, guys, I'm kidding, but I'm really not. So yeah, so Nando was following me, and we started chatting a bit here and there, and he already has the Funkaholic podcast going. He does different episodes about different topics, and he wanted to start having collectors on to talk to. He asked me if I'd come on, and apparently I was just such a good time that he asked me if I'd like to come back on more frequently. And we get along so well, and we're so comfortable talking to each other. And I had such a blast on the podcast that I said yes immediately. So that's how it happened, really.
And you're really enjoying being a part of that now?
I love it. I love having an outlet to discuss different things that are happening in the community. I love, I like to go on my rants. So it's really nice for me to have an outlet to do that instead of just harassing people on Instagram.
Have you found a lot more people are reaching out to you now to discuss those topics with you and really give you maybe inspiration for things to talk about in future episodes, or you talk about something that they're extremely passionate about and then they message you in regards to that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The past couple of episodes, we've also been following sort of the drama, if you will, that's been happening at Funko and all the things that have been going on.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of people message me, either before or right after an episode comes out to tell me their thoughts and their viewpoint, or what do I think about certain things that are going on, or if I'll talk about it on the podcast. So we just had an episode come out today, and I got a couple of messages with feedback because I talked a lot about my opinion on the downsizing there and the information that came out. And a lot of people reached out either saying that they agreed or just giving me their viewpoint, and that I should look into different things that are happening and maybe discuss that on the podcast going forward. So it's been really cool interacting with people and getting people's feedback. I wasn't sure if that would happen, because sometimes, I have no idea who listens to the podcast. Okay. Like Nando does all that stuff. He can see all that stuff. I just operate like it's just me and Nando talking. I have no idea who's listening. So when someone reaches out, it's really nice. I'm like, okay, at least one person listened.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat here.
Okay.
Had you listened to the Funkaholics podcast before you were asked to be on there?
Yes, I had listened to like one or two episodes before, because me and Nando were following each other, and I saw he had a podcast, and I'm always looking for collecting podcasts. But this is my favorite podcast, you guys.
Well, I mean, look.
But I had listened to it. Actually, because they also talk about movies and TV and stuff, and they were doing a Cobra Kai series, and I'm a big Cobra Kai fan.
Yes.
And I actually listened to that.
I specifically didn't listen to the first time you were on that podcast, because I have been listening to your episodes on there as well. I've been giving you feedback on them as well.
Yes, thank you.
The first episode you were on there, when you actually messaged me and you were so excited you were going to be on a podcast, and you even I think you may have been wanting some advice on what you should, anything you should do. But I didn't listen to it because you were talking about the latest season of Cobra Kai and haven't watched it yet, and I didn't want to get spoilers. So I didn't get to listen to the very first time on there. It wasn't till afterwards, when you started talking the more collecting stuff, that I started listening. And now I'm subscribed to the podcast on Apple, and I'm a regular listener to the Fridays with the Pop Fox on the Funkaholics podcast. I will drop a link in so that people can go there. Obviously, they should subscribe here first, but it's totally different. Totally different. This is an interview podcast. Yours is more of a general chat conversation, catching up on the week of collecting, which I love as well, because it's something I'm passionate about, which is really cool. And we've been talking about maybe I'll get a guest spot on that podcast later as well. I can come in. But I don't know how drunk I'll manage to get in the couple of hours. Like I know you guys have a few drinks on the Friday episodes.
Oh, well, it's usually just me who's drunk, but sure. Um, but if someone else would like to take the lead one time, I would really appreciate it.
Well, if you're recording on a where if the recording lines up on a weekend, I'm sure I'll have a couple beers. Otherwise, I'll probably have to be day drinking, and I might not be good for me to do that in the middle of work or something.
Okay, okay,
Depending
I
on feeling
understand.
at
We'll make an exception.
uh, well, before we wrap up, last thing we've spoken about the different lines. We kind of touched on Disney and your love of Toy Story as well. You're in Florida, which means you get to go to the parks a lot, which I'm super jealous of. Is there any item other than the Funko Pops, we're getting away from them, any item that you have to pick up whenever you go to the parks?
Yeah, actually, I have recently started collecting from the Japan quarter of Epcot. There is a store inside of there, and I'm blanking on the name right now. I'm so sorry. They sell these lucky cats. They're
Oh,
like
yeah.
little resin lucky cats, and they have them in all different shapes and sizes and colors. And so every time I go, I pick up one, and I've slowly been growing this little collection. So I think I have like four now.
You'll have to post it. I don't think I've seen a photo of them.
I've never posted them before. I'm trying to figure out where they work in the shelves. So once I do, I'm going to post them. Maybe I'll do it for free February.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And well, that ties in with something that I'd also been talking to you about. For people listening, I am later in this year actually going to be going on my first overseas holiday in many years, thanks to the pandemic, etc. And going back to Japan, which I've spoken about in previous podcasts, my trips to Japan, and said I will try and pick you up something Toy Story from Japan. We are going to be going to Disneyland at Japan. We do plan on spending a couple of days in both Disneyland and Disney Sea. So
That's
I'm sure we'll
awesome.
be picking up quite a number of things from the from the shops there, exiting through the gift shop every day, and I think we're going to probably have an extra, an extra carry-on bag or extra check-in bag, probably full of Disney things. We last time we went, we had to send a whole box home because we couldn't fit stuff in our suitcases, and it ended up spending I think more than $200 on postage to send a box of things back from
I
Disney.
believe it. Oh my gosh. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous because I follow a couple of pages that are just that post product from Disneyland there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they just get such amazing stuff there that we will never see here. So I'm like super jealous right now.
Well, like I
I
said,
should
I'll
have to bring
probably
more
try
than
and
one
pick you
carry on.
something up. For people who are interested as well, and for yourself, I don't know, Marisol, if you've seen TDR Explorer is a YouTube channel that
Let me connect that.
specifically he focuses on the park. So he's a guy from Canada who I think his name's Chris, and he goes through the parks on a weekly basis, sometimes multiple times in a week. But every time they come out, every month, when they come out with new merchandise, he always does a store tour. And my girlfriend and I watch them religiously so that we can see everything that's in the stores at the time. So if you ever want to see what's in the stores at Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea, check out TDR Explorer. It's Tokyo Disney Resort TDR Explorer. He's got fantastic content for that, and he even does guides for people who are visiting as well. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. That's awesome.
but that's enough plugging for other people. Let's wrap it up and let's plug yourself. I always do at the end. Let people know where they can find you.
They could find me on Instagram. I pretty much live there. Uh, my handle is at the pop fox. So it's the underscore pop underscore fox with two X's. You can also find me on Twitter with the same name, the pop fox, two X's. And you can also listen to me every Friday on the Funkaholics podcast.
Perfect. I'll be listening and I'll be continuing to follow and seeing everything, including whatever you're posting in February that's non Funko related as well.
Yeah,
Hashtag Funko Free Feb.
I'm excited for this. I got to start planning. Oh my goodness. I love it.
Marisol, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. And to everyone listening, I look forward to more episodes in 2023. And yeah, can't wait.
Thank you for having me. Finally.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.